Alrighty, folks, we've got the best mage tower in Kingdom Rush. Question mark? Who could it possibly be? Well, it's a very, very tough question to answer because, to be honest, most of these towers in the game are fairly well balanced, right? I think that if Ironhide just made one tower significantly better than all the rest, we'd be like, why would you do that? It's not a balanced game. But we do have advantages and disadvantages, and we can be used in more situations than others, and that's kind of the question here. Which one is the most effective in most situations, and or the strongest when you actually need it to be the strongest? So we're going to be basing all of this off of feelings and a little bit of numbers here. You can see that I will go over the numbers fairly quickly, but there are numbers in the top left corner here, and the number that I wanted you to pay attention to the most are the numbers on the far right side here. This is how efficient a tower is. Higher is better, obviously, and you can see that it's kind of a big jumble here, but Necromancer right from the get is the lowest at 3.16. Actually, Emissary is lowest, 3.15, but right next to it is Necromancer, 3.16. So, whoa, does that mean they're both terrible? Well, no, I mean, they also make skeletons, so they also stall a little bit, so this guy's, of course, going to be a little more effective in that sense. But this guy allows you to do more damage with your other towers, which is not included at all with that number right there. So, both of those definitely have their way that they do something else because their attack damage is overall a little bit lower than the other guys. But if clearly the standouts here are the Arcane Wizard and Stargazer, which both do the most frequent, regular damage in the most normal kind of way, which is fine in my book. And then the Eldritch Chandler was actually kind of the weirdest one here because he is 3.79, but he doesn't have any like special bonus thing he's doing here. So it's actually probably the worst. And on top of that, he's going to miss a lot of his overall max damage here if he either runs out of damage near the end of the power overflow, or he starts hitting a guy that starts to walk out here, or he attacks a low-level guy, because it kind of like resets his cooldown. So like this is best case scenario here, where most of these other towers are not going to have that happening to them. So in my opinion, Eldritch Chandler, as far as just regular attacks go, it's got the worst attack as a 4th tier. Okay, even including the Arbian Emissary, because it just does enough damage for what it says it's supposed to do, on top of allowing your other towers to do more with it. So by the end of this video, I'm going to rank them all. I'm going to go from 1 to 5 and all that stuff. But for right now, just know that in my opinion, if I had to rank just their regular attacks, I would say Eldritch Chandler at 5. I would put this guy at 4. I would put, believe it or not, I almost want to call it a tie between these three, because even though the Necromancer says it doesn't do as much damage, it does do that stalling aspect. And that is a part of his regular attack, basically, because people are going to have that happen. We're going to get extra health out of these things and stalling, which you just cannot calculate that well. So either which way, I really, really like all three of these guys. I think they're very, very solid. It's just a 4th tier regular tower. So these two are on my poop list for regular attacks, and the rest are just kind of pretty good. But abilities, that's really where things are going to come into play. How is the abilities going to come into play here? This is where things get really interesting, because even though I did not like the Eldritch Chandler before, it gets really good with abilities. The Power Overflow in particular gives you the highest efficiency of pretty much any tower automatically in the game, including most, if not all, of the artillery towers. Of course, the artillery towers can max out a little higher, but you're usually not getting that max damage out of these things. Where this guy, he will be getting most of his max damage out of these things, but he's just jumping around to all these guys and whatnot. It's not perfect. Again, you can waste a little bit of this efficiency, but you're not wasting huge chunks of huge swaths of it like you would on the other tiers, because you can bounce around and do stuff. So, and you get the slowdown, which is something ridiculous as well. Any which way, that means it's really, really, really good. Mutation Hex, this number's not exactly accurate. I don't want to really say that it's good or whatnot, but you can turn somebody into a sheep, and technically it's an infinite efficiency if you can do it like that, because you can kill anybody with that thing. But just know that it is an okay ability. So I'll put it like in mid, like it's irrelevant in my opinion. It's okay, it's all right, but this thing is fantastic. You cannot overlook that aspect. All right, moving on, we've got the roots of this guy right here, which we also need to talk about his regular attack, the curse aspect. So, oh boy, this guy is weird, because the roots themselves are actually pretty solid. I mean, we're talking about 160 money, which is not that much, to do true damage to multiple enemies, and to stall them for a significant amount of time. This thing is a solid ability. Its efficiency isn't as great as some of the other abilities, but that stalling aspect, something you just can't really overlook here. And like I said, it's a long stall, so it really builds people up, gets them all together and whatnot, and allows your other towers to just do more damage overall. So, in addition to that, the curse aspect. So if we look back at the top here, all right, our emissary had two parts to it. An emissary and a 2-tower emissary. If you have 2 towers also attacking where the emissary is, so you want to put them, for example, here instead of up here, then these 2 towers would get bonus damage for attacking every single guy. And if that is the case, your efficiency goes up to about 5. If both the guys are utilizing every single amount of damage that they can, that's what's going to happen. Of course, it's not going to work out perfectly, because you can see that we're bouncing around to multiple different guys and everything. They're not always going to be cursed and whatnot, but it's still possible to get that bonus damage out of them in a fairly effective way. So I don't want to ignore this guy at all, but I just want to say that I usually don't like it because it requires you to not only go for a late game emissary, it requires you to say that I'm going to put it next to 2 other towers that can also be pretty much maxed out here, and that limits you, I don't want to say to the latest of late game here, but you're probably waiting until wave 10 or 11 or 12 before you actually build an emissary that's actually going to be good or helpful or useful to your team, rather than just sort of like, just kind of existing and maybe helping out a little bit. So, again, I don't want to call him bad, but not my playstyle whatsoever, and I think very, very difficult to use. Alright, and the abilities don't really help that much. The heal as well is something that I don't want to say it's not useful here, but you really need a lot of tower slots to combine together to make it worthwhile. You need this guy, you need a damage shooter tower, and you need a barracks tower. Where do you find 4 tower slots in a normal place to put that all together? It just doesn't exist very often, so it's difficult to use. Then move on to the Rising Star, which we've got 2 different aspects to. So we're just going to get rid of the emissary here for now. And we've got the Rising Star and the Event Horizon. Rising Star is going to explode on anybody that you kill and explode stars out. Of course, because the Elven Stargazer randomly attacks units instead of attacking just the front unit, it's going to not happen as often as you would like, which is probably the main negative aspect of the Rising Star, is that you're not going to get explosions out of the Rising Star. It has to be a regular attack, not a Rising Star, to make the Rising Star explode out, and that can mean he can be difficult to use properly. So Rising Star in my book is a big fat, like, D, maybe an F, as far as abilities go. Efficiency-wise, it can be useful for 4.6 and 5 if you use it absolutely perfectly, which you're never going to do. You're almost never going to have 5 different guys right next to you that all explode stars out. I mean, and then you're attacking different guys all over the place, so you never actually get to get the kill anyways. It's very, very tricky. Event Horizon, though, a teleport. You really cannot pass up a teleport. It's something you don't get very often in a lot of abilities, and this is, of course, going to help you out so much if you need that teleport aspect, especially against the big guys. So, Event Horizon, heck yeah, bro. Heck yeah. Pretty freaking good. But we don't have numbers to talk about that. Then we've got the Arcane Wizard here, which is a kind of just regular old damage doer for the most part. I mean, it just does regular stuff. It doesn't do anything fancy here. It just consistently kills people. And when you have a Disintegrate, which can be used unbelievably effectively against big guys and bosses right when you need it as well, because as soon as you buy it, it can activate. It ends up being really, really solid. Efficiency-wise, it's pretty solid as well. 5.3, 5.6, and 5.75 if you get the max damage out. But if you Disintegrate a guy with 180 health, of course, that's going to be freaking awful there. So you can easily waste the possible damage on the Disintegrate. But because it does the boss damage, there's really no other way to say it's not good. It's just rock freaking solid. Empowerment. Now, this is another one that's kind of goofy, because you need to have towers next to you. So you don't have a bunch of places that is useful, admittedly. You don't have a bunch of maps where you're going to be like, yeah, I can get a bunch of towers all around me, like I was talking about with the Arborean Emissary. But it is... oh, look at that. Delicious. So you can't use it all the time, but if you do get 3 other towers around you, you're going to have an efficiency of 5.6, 4.7, and 5.0, which I don't want to say is good or bad, but it's fair for what it is. So I'm going to put that again, kind of it doesn't really matter too much to me, part of the game. It's just kind of there, but Disintegrate is pretty solid and very good against the bosses. And that's going to lead us to our Necromancer, the final tower here. So the Necromancer is going to be fairly interesting. He's going to have 2 abilities here that are fairly helpful in a lot of ways. So the Rattling Beacon allows you to get more skeletons, basically. Okay, and it's going to give you a small bonus to that skeleton damage, which I don't want to say is worthless, but it's really not what we care about as much as you would think. It's more about getting it for the extra skeletons and the extra stalling power. But even with just thinking about damage. We're still at an efficiency of about 3.75, which is a very, very fair number, not mentioning the ridiculous amount of extra stalling power here. So Rattling Beacon is great, okay, for a overall damage and stallability aspect here, which again, with the Mage Tower with stalling, don't really have a lot of that anywhere else, so yeah, all right. And then the Death Rider. So this is a weird one. If you're going to get the Death Rider, you probably need to hit about 8 guys to make it worthwhile, which you could easily hit 12 or 15 guys in some places, or you could hit 1. Sometimes they jump the wrong way or hit the wrong side here. Easily go down a way where you're hitting big, strong guys instead of a bunch of weak guys. But and you can max out the damage a little too easily because it does a whopping 150 true damage at the highest level here. So you can see we ran the wrong way. Instead of running up here, we ran down there. So that's definitely something you have to watch out for. But if you hit 8 guys, which I think is a pretty average-ish good number that you're going to hit, we're at 4.8, 4.4, and 4, which is very fair overall. So I don't even want to mention it too much, but it has a big damage possibility, but a little bit tricky to get the max out of it every time. But if you have a lot of stalling in front of it or whatnot, it can be absolutely fantastic with skeletons and everything. It just works well with what you're normally doing here. Any which way, it's kind of time for ranking. So we can look at all this stuff if we want to. And we can look at the numbers up here as if we want to. But it's very, very tricky to say with numbers that a certain tower is better or worse than the other ones. It's going to be more of a feeling. And to be honest, because they're fairly well balanced, I would not hate you if you said any certain tower was better than any other tower. I would not say that you are an idiot because you think a different tower is better than me, okay? We're all going to have our favorites, so I don't want anybody to hate me here. But this is my opinion, and this is what I want to give it, okay? I want to say that the Arborean Emissary is a last place for me, okay? Oh, look at this. We just got like 8 to 10 of them there, but if you went this way, we would have got like 20. Dang. Arborean Emissary is going to be the biggest loser on my list. Not because it's actually bad, but because I find it has limited usability. That's the main reason. I really only want to use this thing on a big unit, with multiple towers around me, with probably barracks guys as well, and it's so tricky to find any usable spot for me in the late game where that can all be possible. So I find it so tricky to use that I just kind of stay away from it. I'm just like, yeah, I could use it, but I don't want to. I don't want to get bogged down by doing all these weird things to make it usable. I just want to put a tower down and have it do some stuff, right? So I'm going to put him 5th on my list. 4th on my list, I'm going to put the Elven Stargazer. I think it's a very easy 4 on the list because, specifically, these frickin' stars don't work well. They don't work the way they should work. Even though the teleport's pretty solid and, like, the only good teleport in the game, I hate the Rising Star so much, I just have to say frickin' no. Get out of here. Get out of here. I don't like you. You are tough to use. So tough to use that I don't like you. At number 3 on my list, now this is where it gets tricky, because all 3 of these guys are actually really good towers. I like the way that they work overall. I like all of their abilities pretty fairly over here, but in my opinion, this guy's a little difficult to use because you really have to spend a big chunk of money on him, and even then you can waste damage overall a little bit with the power overflow. It can be a little bit tricky to use, I guess, in a lot of situations, and even though it's got a pretty good efficiency, you're probably not getting that actual 8 out of it. You know, just to be straight, you're probably getting somewhere in the 6 range at best with the power overflow, and I just don't know. And that leaves us down to the final 2 here. And I think Arcane Wizard, because it's amazing against bosses, I'm going to put it at 2 on my list. But I think I got to put Necromancer just a smidge higher here. After playing the game like 4 times, Necromancer is just too cool to pass up. It's got everything, which is kind of the cool part. It's got the magic damage. It's got the stall ability. It's got the both abilities are really solid there. Like, I don't want to say it can't be passed up, but it is rock solid across the board and really fun to use too. So that is my list. We're going to go Emissary, Channeler, or excuse me, Emissary, Stargazer. Then we're going to go Channeler. Then we're going to go for the Arcane Wizard, and finally the Necromancer. I feel a little bad that I put the Arcane Wizard above the Channeler, but I feel like it's a little too hard to use in every situation. It's tough to use at level 1, 2, 3, and 4, where Arcane Wizard is just kind of good all the time. right? Anyways, if you guys enjoyed, press that like button, subscribe, and have a super duper delicious day, and let me know in the comments below what you think about it.